Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody. What's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley. Welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. This is our spotlight game of the week. Colorado hosting Cincinnati Saturday night. I'm not sure a lot of people thought this was going to be one of the spotlight games at the beginning of the season, but here we are in this crazy Big 12, and I absolutely love it. We're going to get into this with my man, Adam Munsterteiger here just shortly. Again, before we do, everybody remember to continue to like, follow, subscribe, and leave those comments. We absolutely appreciate it. So first things first, Adam, how are you doing, my man?
Good. Just got back from Tucson the other day, and it's crazy because it was like over 100 degrees leading up to that, and we got 70-degree temps both Friday coming in and during the game, so we kind of lucked out. I think it's back in the 90s out there. So after covering the game at UCF where I lost about 20 pounds of water weight, I was sweating so much a couple of weeks before that, I definitely took to the dry climate down there in Tucson.
Absolutely. It seemed like a quick cold front went everywhere, and then it's back to the temperatures that it was before. Pretty dominant victory, though, Adam, on Saturday. And it wasn't the kind of dominant victory that when you associate Colorado since Coach Prime has been there, it wasn't that. It wasn't that they threw for 500 yards and had all of this offense. This was a defensive domination on Saturday, Adam, that I don't know if a lot of people saw coming, but people that follow Colorado kind of saw this coming.
Well, there was a stretch late in the first half where there were there were 3 turnovers in 6 plays.
Right.
And 2 of those turnovers were by Colorado. And in that moment, I'm thinking this is where Colorado teams would just absolutely fold up, on defense and kind of fall apart. And what did this Colorado defense in 2024 do? Well, after they had just gotten a forced fumble back to the offense, and then Shedeur throws a pick, they come out there and force a 3 and out. It was just, okay, this is maybe the time. And there were a couple other moments in that game where this is just a little bit different mindset that this Colorado team's really has had since the second half of that Nebraska game. Now, Arizona, honestly, they're borderline reeling at this point. That was a really rough game for them, especially their offensive line. Colorado was able to pin their ears back, get 7 sacks in that football game. It kind of brought me back to kind of how Colorado's offensive line looked at times last year, where Fafita just really had no opportunity to make plays in that football game. You saw his feet get really happy there as the game went on. And again, that kind of reminded me a little bit of last year for Colorado. So I know they're going through it down there in Tucson right now. But for Colorado, it really was not a perfect effort. They made mistakes in every phase of the game, but you're just seeing a more consistent effort out of this team. And again, that pass rush is something that we thought was going to be really improved. It was a little slow to get out of the gates this year, but now you look at it, they lead the I almost said Pac-12. They lead the Big 12 in sacks and tackles for a loss. So that's a group that has really improved. So much of the focus has been on CU's O-line, and Colorado's offensive line has gotten better, but it's also that defensive front that has gotten substantially better from last year.
Correct. I mean, the one thing that I take away from what you said, nobody gave Colorado grace when their offensive line was going through it and all those sacks. So, I mean, it is what it is. Unfortunately, like you said, Arizona, they're going through it right now. But it's unrelenting. Unfortunately, that's kind of the way sports are, especially college football and especially in the Big 12. But yeah, it's just an unfortunate thing. The second part of that, though, Adam, is I'll say this. If you're better than somebody and you're that much better than somebody, the job is to go dominate them. Regardless of you make the mistakes, and so you still go dominate that football team. Colorado did that, man, and that was impressive. Look, I know a lot of people just don't want to just come out and say that, and I'm going to say it, and I'm not going to just say because Arizona is not as good. I get that. But when you're not as good or when you're that much better than somebody, you're supposed to go dominate them, and Colorado did that. That's the sign of a good football Adam?
Yeah, if Colorado can keep running the football the way they did in this football game, gaining 148 yards on the ground. 2 weeks prior to that against UCF, they had a pretty balanced attack, and they won that game convincingly. In the middle of that, they played Kansas State and had, I think it was minus 27 yards, the lowest rushing total of any Big 12 game since 2006, and they lost that football game. They were right there in it because Shedeur Sanders is pretty special.
Yeah.
But if Colorado's going to win or contend for or achieve their goals this year in terms of going for that Big 12 championship, they have to be multidimensional the way that they were in those 2 football games, and they have not been that consistently. And that's kind of the key, I think, for them going forward. In this week, going up against Cincinnati, you see that, as Coach Prime said today at his press conference, they're not super flashy. They're not anything super exceptional, but they are well balanced. Mm-hmm. And that's something they aspire to be offensively going forward. And it certainly takes a lot of pressure off Shedeur Sanders. He didn't have his best game down in Tucson, but they didn't need that. And when you need him to be Superman every week, he can't do that 12 times. Right. And so I think that's really the thing that could separate this team. Now, if they go back to negative rushing yardage or under 50 yards, which has been kind of the consistent theme the past year and a half, then they're not going to contend for the Big 12. But you have seen a concerted effort from them to get that going.
Right. I heard Coach Prime today, in his press conference talking about Travis Hunter. Said he was going to play a little bit more this week. He said he feels better. He looked better, had a little bit more pep in his step. I believe that's what he said. And then just watching the game, it almost looked like Travis was out there, but almost as a decoy last Saturday, just to kind of occupy, coverage and just occupy, because he didn't even play that many snaps on defense. Is he going to be full go this weekend?
I don't know if full go is quite confirmed at this point, but we hear that he's going to have a bigger role, is expected to have a bigger role on the team this coming week. And you can't bet against Travis Hunter, right, especially when it comes to conditioning or health. And so I don't expect to see that again. We saw it last year where he came back after getting hit in the abdomen in the Colorado State game in Game 3. He came back and had a rough game against Stanford. That was his first game back, and that's when Stanford had that 29-point second half comeback against Colorado. But from that point, he kind of worked off that rust and was the Travis Hunter that we expected and everybody expect to see the rest of the season. So we'll see if that happens this weekend. They do have a bye week coming up after Cincinnati. So the good thing for Colorado is that you want Travis Hunter out there, obviously. He is an All-American at 2 positions, but Colorado only gave up 38 yards to Tetairoa McMillan in that football game. Colton Hood got an interception. Preston Hodge and DJ McKinney, an Oklahoma State transfer, matched up with him and did a good job. And then offensively, we've seen Will Shepard make some impressive catches. LeJonte Westers is kind of catching his stride. So they have other weapons. They're not quite as dependent on Travis Hunter as they were last year. But, yeah, if you can have number 12 out there, then his ball skills are off the charts. So hopefully they can get him out there this week.
Absolutely. Switching focus to the game this week. First off, I'm kind of mentioned it in the opening. Is there any way, and I'm just asking you this, Adam, that when you saw the schedule, did you believe that this football game was going to be the highlight game on, October 26th? It was going to be the highlight game of the Big 12, because it is this weekend. This game has enormous implications moving forward, not only for bowl eligibility, to keep fighting for the Big 12 college football playoff. This game is enormous. Did you see that when you first saw this schedule come out?
No, but at the same time, when I was filling out my preseason Big 12 media poll, I was having a real hard time, Brian. It was just we're splitting hairs with so many of these teams, and I just
Yeah.
really struggle with that. And at some point, I was like, you know what? You're overthinking it. Just put down 16 teams, how you feel,
Right.
and then we'll see how it goes. So no, I had Cincinnati lower.
Yep.
I had BYU lower. I had Arizona State lower. So I think a lot of us were in the same boat of just kind of mispredicting some of those top teams in the conference. And so it is kind of crazy because Colorado doesn't play Iowa State. They don't play BYU. They don't play Arizona State. And those were the teams, going into the season you wanted on the schedule, and now
Right.
you're happy that they're not there. And so Cincinnati being on there is one of those on kind of the other end of that, where
Right.
okay, this is going to be a tougher game, especially Colorado they went to a bowl game during the abbreviated 2020 season, but that was not a good season for Colorado, and that was the beginning of the Carl Jarrell era, and we know how that played out. So it's really been since 2016 since they've really earned a genuine bowl berth, and they're one win away with a bye week coming up. They really want to get that, and then all of a sudden you can start to talk about contending for the Big 12 championship and all that stuff. But they better show up and not sleepwalk in this game, because Cincinnati's a good team, and they'll come into Folsom Field and win this game if that's your mindset going into this. We have not seen Colorado at its best in those late games at Folsom Field so far this season. This is a team that practices early in the morning. Coach Prime said they're changing up their practice schedule this week. Does that make an impact? I guess we'll find out on Saturday.
Well, and that was going to be my next question as far as this game is, what are some of the challenges that Cincinnati brings to the table? I mean, just you see they have a quarterback, they're running the ball pretty well. It's kind of what Coach Prime said. They're not flashy, but they're just good at everything. They're just pretty sound at everything. Is there anything that stands out specifically that you got to try to take away to be able to beat Cincinnati?
Well, for Colorado, establishing that ground game, and even if that first handful of carries don't breed a great yards per carry average, you got to stick with it.
Right.
But yeah, that's the thing with a solid team like Cincinnati is typically they're not the team that's going to beat themselves. So it's just a game, especially being at home. And I think Colorado has more talent than Cincinnati. So it's really about taking care of what you do more so than anything. Last week we obsessed about Tedero and McMillan and all that, and he didn't really have much of an impact. So it really is for Colorado minimizing their mistakes. And if they can keep that pass rush going, it's certainly I don't think you can expect them to have 7 sacks again like they did against Arizona, because that offensive line was struggling. But continuing that, keeping that momentum going forward would be big going into this game.
Gotcha. Last question before I get you out of here, Adam. With everything going on over the last couple of seasons with Colorado, with, all the fanfare and, the publicity, they're a ratings darling for ESPN and any network that would want to have them on. What is the feeling? I mean, you touched on it a little bit as far as being bowl eligible, which is a very, very important thing. I know a lot of people, we only look at the college football playoff. Getting bowl eligible actually means something. It still means something. But what is the overall feeling, not just with the coaches, the players, the administrators, but the fan base and everybody? Is everybody super excited knowing that they are literally not just on the cusp? We can even put the college playoff on the back burner because they're not there yet. But just this bowl eligibility thing, is everybody that follows Colorado just super excited about possibly becoming bowl eligible and then throwing their name into this hat of possibly being, okay, well, here they are. They're right there on the cusp, because after this weekend, again, there's going to be some things that get filtered out. They win this game, they have to be in a conversation of possibly getting to the Big 12 title game.
Colorado fans are extremely excited to be 5-2 at this point. I think, you could even have that Kansas State go the other way. You would have liked to have a better effort against Nebraska, but generally, I don't think there would be a Colorado fan that wouldn't take 5-2 after 7 games. But there's also some of this PTSD that's built up within this fan base from not only just last year, them really struggling down the stretch and finishing 4-8, but just prior to that, and there's been a lot of 5-7, 4-8 teams that a few things go right here, then they would have been in a bowl game, but it didn't happen. And so um, it's funny because last year when they were 4-1, there was maybe over the top excitement, and this year it's like, okay, not at the finish line, not even close to it,
Right.
with 5 games left. So I think that has changed a little bit, and also you start to look at the pieces that are on this team, and if Travis Hunter can stay healthy, I mean, they're really up there with the other top teams in the conference in terms of overall talent. So then you start to get a little bit greedy too. I think you're a little bit on one hand apprehensive of we've seen this happen, got excited, and then got let down before, so we're not going to do that. But then on the other hand, hey, this is actually a team that, especially when we've seen a couple performances in the last month that show that they've turned the corner a little bit in certain areas that had been struggling in the past. Offensive line, getting the ground game going a little bit, the pass rush. And so then all of a sudden, those expectations get raised at the same time. It's
Right.
kind of contradicting feelings, but I kind of, even covering this team, that's how you kind of look at it. I mean, they had 5 wins and they were up by 28 points at halftime against Oregon State back in 2018, and the Sun Bowl reps were in the press box and they said, we'd like to get Colorado, but we think they're too good for us. What happened? They ended up losing the rest of their games. And so there's some of that history with Colorado that it's just hard to chuck. But again, I think the talent and just the mental makeup of this team is different. And so you're kind of battling with both of those things when you're a Colorado fan right now.
Gotcha. Totally understand, man. Well, it's going to be a good one on Saturday. Looking forward to seeing it. Should be a lot of eyeballs on this game. Brings a lot of attention, not just to Cincinnati, not just to Colorado, but the conference as a whole. I think it needs it as we're starting to get down to the nitty gritty of college football. I want to thank you, Adam, again for your time, man. You're always very, very gracious with us. We appreciate what you've helped do for this channel. And we will be back soon. We'll have you back soon as soon as we need to. So we appreciate it.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks, Brien.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll be right back with Chad Brindle talking Cincinnati.
Welcome back to the show. Let's head back to the studio.
All right. We got our man, Chad Brindle, here on the other side of this crazy good football game that's got a ton of implications. Cincinnati going to Colorado. First things first, Chad, how are you doing today, my man? How's it going?
I'm good. A lot of dad work, and then a lot of unnecessary things that I say. It's like future me pays for the sins of like me in the present. That's always like, yeah, I can do that. And then the day arrives and you're like, I can't do this. I'm busy.
Absolutely. No, I understand, man. I totally understand. Let me just start off here, and I'm going to ask you this, and I've been asking people, I think I said this to you, the exact same question last week, but I'm going to ask you again. Looking at the schedule at the beginning of the year, did you think that this game at Colorado that has been moved to a night game, and that means something, did you think that this game was going to have this type of meaning?
Potentially. I mean, the thing when we looked at Cincinnati's schedule, and I think I talked with you about this before the season started, they had a chance to have a pretty good record going into this back half of the schedule. It was going to be a matter of, did they get the job done? The crazy thing is they're 4 points away from being 7-0.
Absolutely.
They lost by 1 to Pitt. They lost by 3 at Texas Tech. Like, they're close to having us sitting here talking about a ranked Cincinnati and going, what is going on? Yeah. But they've kind of handled their business. They haven't played great the past couple weeks, but they did that important thing where at the end of the game, you have more points on the scoreboard than the other team. So they've handled some adversity. They've, the defense, it's kind of funny. The defense, after the offense handled the first 5 games of the season, the defense has stepped up the past 2 games.
Yeah.
And, Colorado, I think they're in a similar boat. their defense has really started to come on after a bad start to the season. And as a coach, that's what you want to see, right? Like your weakness is starting to round into form, starting to look better, starting to give you, some of that sign of complementary football, that it doesn't have to be, for Colorado, just all the passing game, and for Cincinnati, just all offense. They're starting to find other ways to win. And I'm not shocked. Look, Colorado's got the best player in college football, maybe the second best player in college football. I don't want to disrespect Ashton Genty.
Right.
But Travis Hunter is.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
He's a unicorn. Like,
Yes.
and Shadur Sanders is going to be a first-round draft pick in the NFL draft. And now they're getting some support from their defense. So I'm not shocked that they're playing well. And Cincinnati's kind of where they needed to be going into Colorado, West Virginia, Iowa State, Kansas State. This 4-game stretch, coming down the towards November and into December.
Right. And the thing to me is the implications of the game. I don't think I'm shocked. And most real football people aren't shocked at both of these teams being where they are, but the implications, because, we talked about, or everybody's talked about, how the conference got kind of turned upside down. The teams that were picked at the bottom are now at the top of the conference, and the teams that were picked to be at the top are at the bottom of the conference. So the implication of this game, because it's kind of a de facto elimination game, to be honest with you, Chad, because, just based on schedule and who you have to beat. Now, again, those crazy Big 12 tiebreakers that seem to be under lock and key that nobody knows how to get out of, but it's kind of a de facto elimination game. And the winner puts themselves right smack dab in the middle of being in contention to win the Big 12 conference.
Yeah, the winner's going to be 4-1 in the conference past the halfway point.
Yep.
And that puts you in play for a conference championship game. Like, any way you slice it, no matter how hard the rest of your remaining schedule is, you are sitting at the 5-game mark in a 9-game conference schedule at 4-1. And who the hell knows? By the end of this weekend, could be tied for first. Like, in this league, BYU and UCF were not UCF. BYU and Iowa State were on the ropes.
Yeah.
Like, Muhammad Ali. Like, they were at times it felt like both of them were dead in the water.
Yes.
And they managed to pull it out. So who knows where you tied for first, in a dead heat for second. Like, this is a big, big deal. And man, we have seen these Big 12 after dark 10-15 kickoffs have been doozies.
Yes, they have been doozies. To me, I think it's great for the conference. I know a lot of people, especially on your side of the country, it's late football. I get it. But for me, I think it's great for the conference. And I want to ask you this, Chad. I think it's great for the kids because, look, going to Colorado is different. I was there a couple of weeks ago. It's just different with what you have to deal with. And when I say that, the celebrities that show up. Look, I was a college kid, man. And if I'm warming up on the sideline or I'm playing in a football game where I've got all these celebrities on the sideline, that means something. As adults, maybe it doesn't mean that much, or it's not that big of a deal. It's not important. But for kids, it's important. How do Cincinnati, or have they even talked about trying to handle basically the circus? And I call it circus. And when I say that, I don't mean to demean anything, but it's a show. Let me say better. It's a show. How are they going to handle the show that's going on in Colorado? And again, when I say show, I don't mean I don't think it's bad. I think it's great.
I think they should be okay. They seem to have a pretty grounded team. I mean,
good.
Brendan Sorsby's kind of the ultimate level of cool and collected. He doesn't seem to get too high or too low. And it kind of starts at quarterback. So I think they'll be good there. Corey Kiner's a quiet kid. I think it's going to come down to more, can they stop the passing attack of Colorado? Then it's going to be the bright lights and the glitz and the glamour. The other thing is East Coast, it's 10:15 at night when it kicks off. Like, these kids stay up late and but your internal clock, the hardest part is not I don't think the 10-15 kickoff.
Halftime.
It's how do you occupy your entire day?
Yeah, you're right.
You know, like that is a lot of you think it's a lot of sitting around for us? Like, we can do stuff. We can go out and get some stuff done in the yard. We can sit around and watch, 10 hours of football if we want to, if that's our desired path.
Right.
They've got to like occupy their mind, I actually joked yesterday in the press conference with one of the players. What's the over under on naps? How many, not if you are going to take a nap, how many naps are you going to get in trying to pass time sitting in a hotel room?
Yeah.
Until like it's going to be probably 7:00 Cincinnati time before they even get on a bus.
Correct.
To go to the game. That's 12 hours. These kids are going to get up at 7-8 o'clock in the morning and get breakfast and nutrition and all that stuff. That's 12 hours of just hanging out. As a player, that's just a lot of sitting around, twiddling your thumbs.
Yeah, I remember playing at Colorado, and it's just a coincidence it was at Colorado, but we had a night game. It was the same type of thing, and we got out. We took a walk as a team. Yeah. We did some stuff, but then it was just we're sitting here and we're literally going to sleep, just waking. We woke up at the same time, all that, but then there was a 6-hour window where it was like, okay, do we play cards? There's only so much studying that you can do of the playbook. When you get it, you get it. It is what it is. It's like, I'm going to take a nap. I don't want to eat a whole lot. It's just, so I get that. That's a big thing. But when I talked to some Kansas State people, some kids after the game at Colorado, and that's why I brought it up. They mentioned halftime. They were like, okay, it's literally midnight. And why college kids stay up. Don't get me wrong. College kids stay up, but they're not staying up till 3 a.m. But even if they're up at midnight, they're not playing a football game. That's not – nobody's internal clock is saying, you know what, I'm going to play a football game at midnight. So it'll be
let's go out and crash into each other. Let's go create some car wrecks.
Yeah,
with our bodies at midnight.
That is not happening. You brought this up, and I want to touch on this because I think it's an outstanding point. You talked about complementary football, and, the offense had carried them for the first several games, and then the defense, the last 2 games have carried them. It's kind of the same way, and you did mention the same way at Colorado, them playing complementary football, because last week they didn't throw it all over the yard to win the game. They won it at the line of scrimmage. I feel like this game is going to come down to the same thing. Now, the only difference is we've seen Colorado be able to win games even when they lose the line of scrimmage. That's kind of, I don't want to say their MO, but I believe Cincinnati's got a much better chance if they can run the football and stop the run and make Colorado one-dimensional.
Absolutely. And that's what Cincinnati's been good at the past couple weeks.
Yeah.
The difference being they played 2 teams that, let's be honest, had bad quarterback play.
Correct.
Bad quarterback play. So is RJ Harvey awesome? Absolutely. Is Cam Scatterbo awesome? Absolutely. But neither of those guys had good quarterbacks or, high-level quarterbacks, an NFL first-round draft pick also there. Making them one-dimensional is key because I don't know how good Cincinnati is against the pass. I really don't. And they might be bad, B. They might be bad because Pittsburgh has a good passing attack. Cincinnati kept that in check for 2.5 quarters. But at the end of that game, the reason they lost is that passing attack for Pittsburgh got ramped up.
Right.
And then Texas Tech is really the only other predominant high-level passing team, even though they've got Taj Brooks. They can really throw it.
Right.
And they kind of ate Cincinnati up. So now you get Shadur, who, unless you haven't watched Colorado, I think people look at that and say, athletic, mobile quarterback, this guy runs for a lot of yards. He does not.
Nope.
He extends plays, and his eyes are down the field, and he is just waiting to see a guy break open by a little bit, and he's going to throw him open the rest of the way.
Correct.
And that is something they have not seen. And when that is something you have not seen, the adjustment period can kill you.
Absolutely.
Getting acclimated to do not stop. Like this wide receiver, Jimmy Horn Jr. is not going to stop his route and stand there.
Nope.
He's going to keep moving because he knows Shadeur's going to get him the ball.
Right.
So that's something that I am concerned about when breaking this game down for Cincinnati's defense, is they just don't have the experience, I guess is probably the best word. They haven't seen it yet. And
right.
I don't feel confident that the first time you see it all, you don't usually ace the class on day one.
I hear you. Well, the thing about it is pass rush is important. But you got to get pass rush with just 4, because if you try to bring a whole bunch of guys, he'll get the ball out of his hands, and those guys are super elusive and can break tackles. So I think pass rush is the key. And you're right about Shedeur, because, you know, you think, okay, he's Deion Sanders' son. He's got to have all this crazy athleticism running around. Well, he's elusive when I mean getting away from the pocket. But let's not kid ourselves. He didn't get Deion's athleticism. I'm not saying he's not an athletic kid, but he did not get Deion's athleticism. He moves around to throw. And that's what you see. He'll get a few yards here and there if you absolutely give it to him, but he wants to throw that football. And that's the difference. I think pass rush is going to be something that Cincinnati's going to have to do in this one.
Sure.
And pass rush with 4.
The problem there is a lot of Cincinnati's pass rush has come for, especially of late, has come from their linebackers, not their defensive line. Guys like Jared Bartlett, guys like Jake Golday are the guys that have been getting after the quarterback, which means you're sending linebackers.
Right.
You're sending linebackers. You got less guys in coverage. The name really to probably watch here is Dante Corleone, because he can destroy your defensive line from the middle. And while quarterbacks love going, they do not love pass rush right from the center. And we have seen Corleone, especially of late, now that he has gotten into game shape and rounded back into form, he has taken multiple centers and just deposited them in the lap of quarterbacks.
Right.
And if he can dominate that one-on-one battle against their center or against their guard, however they're going to block him, I would assume they will have a double team on him as often as humanly possible. Right. That is Cincinnati's chance to get Shedeur Sanders off schedule, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, man, I appreciate you giving your time. I'm excited for this football game. I think, it's good for the Big 12 that we have teams. And we knew we were going to have it at the beginning of the year because with OU and Texas leaving, we were going to have some different teams that are up at the top of this conference. This is good for not just the Big 12, but it's great for Cincinnati because after last season, I'm not sure a lot of people thought they'd be where they are. They are here. And this is a big-time football game. I don't want anybody to confuse it. This is a huge football game within this conference, man, and for UC. So I'm glad to see it. Should be really fun. Thank you, Chad, again, for giving us your time, man, as you always do. You're so gracious to this channel and to me personally. So I want to thank you for that. And we will be back soon, guys. Again, thank you. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.